Our next guest wrote this op-ed to Governor Tom Wolf. We have that on your screen now. Joining us now to discuss is Republican Congressman, this is Dan Meuser. Congressman, rather, good to see you again. Your article here, you criticized the governor's reopening plan. My question is to you, how would you change it? What would your plan look like?
Well, I'll tell you, from the very beginning, this plan was misguided, frankly. And the governor's office did make themselves available for conversation, but they didn't follow the input of the stakeholders, Pennsylvania families and businesses. You can't pick and choose who's going to stay open and who is going to be closed based upon a new definition known as life-sustaining. From the very beginning, the premise was wrong. He shut down the entire supply chain, and it was very arbitrary and capricious. It was just that simple. It was a bad premise and a bad plan from the beginning. So they did their best to pull it together, but so many businesses were shuttered and hurt by it. What should have been done is a high level of workplace health and safety standards should have been developed. Companies in a uniform manner or based upon their industry. A restaurant and a manufacturing plant are different. Stakeholders should have been brought to the table and a discussion taken place. Just what President Trump did. That's what President Trump did. Almost every day we see the president with private sector, with people, with nurses. The hospital's the same thing. They got shut down. And meanwhile, we never even had a large surge of corona patients in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, there were many, many mistakes made, and it's still not too late. We can correct path. We can set health and safety standards in the workplace, and we're going to have to do it in the schools when we want the schools to open up. We can't do things in an arbitrary, capricious manner and in a vacuum. It's a wrong way to develop plans.
You bring me to my next point about Dr. Rachel Levine. There's calls for the state's health secretary here, Dr. Levine, to be removed or even resign over the Commonwealth's controversial COVID-19 nursing home policy. At last check here, more than 4,600 people have died from the virus in the state, with about 70% of those deaths linked to these facilities, to nursing homes. Levine, though, in hot water because she removed her mother from a long-term care home amid the pandemic, despite ordering those to go there. What are your thoughts on this, Congressman?
Well, again, serious mistakes were made. The data, they like talking about the data and the science. Well, you can't just look at it. You actually have to follow it. I was in the business world for 25 years. In God we trust. Everybody else bring their data. You look at it and you talk to stakeholders. In order to make sure that you're getting it right, that your data matches what's in the interest of your customers or your constituents. And they didn't do that because the data clearly stated that nursing homes were where the fatalities were happening. I mean, very sadly and tragic, but in Pennsylvania, over 70% of the fatalities were in nursing homes. And this was steady from the very beginning. Yeah. That data should have been followed.
But
the resources.
Congressman, let me back up to sure. Dr. Rachel Levine, the health secretary. She ordered those to go to these nursing homes despite having COVID, but she pulled her mother out of it. So she must have known the risk. Why would somebody like that be in charge?
Now, good question. It was done in New York as well. Governor Cuomo did the same thing. They thought the hospitals were going to be overrun, so they sent COVID-infected elderly with underlying conditions back to the nursing homes. So, yes, and look, she's got to answer that question. It certainly doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. Sure. Media and others and ought to be taking a close look at it. It was some very poor judgment.
All right, I want to switch topics with you. Something that I'm pretty sure you may not be on board with. Nancy Pelosi's voting proxy, if you will, that is being pushed forth to possibly for you guys, the House members, to vote remotely. What does that look like? Is someone going to step in your place in D.C. to vote for you? Do you tell this person what you would vote, and then that person casts the vote for you?
Yes, what's amazing about this is the first time since 1791, since Congress started voting. Every single vote that's been taken in the House of Representatives since the Constitution was passed was taken by a member who was present. Speaker Pelosi has decided to deviate from that, along with every Democrat except for 3 every Republican voted against it, and she's now allowing a member to carry 10 proxy votes, 10 votes of their caucus colleagues. So now you only require 20 members. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi can bring in 20 members, and they have 10 votes apiece. So that's 200 plus 20. They can pass anything they want with 20 members present. Unbelievable. It is going to be challenged in the courts because Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution states that a quorum is necessary to conduct House business. So we shall see where this goes, but it's just wrong. Think about all of those in the early 1800s on horseback, on wagons, coming into Washington through wars, the War of 1812, through other pandemics along the years, and now, just as our country is opening up, Speaker Pelosi decides to shut down Congress. So again, I'm a little flabbergasted by some of these liberal decisions being made in our country.
Congressman, I'm just curious as to why this is so partisan. You would think that there'd be some members of each side that are like, hey, you know, I don't know if this is exactly the right thing to do, voting by proxy. This hasn't been done since the Great Depression didn't cause this. Any of our wars didn't cause something like this. Right. We're going to do this now. But it turned into such a partisan thing. What about remote voting? If a technology is put in place, and I was reading about that, that may be the ultimate decision that would obviously have to be voted on and pushed through. But would remote voting by some technology, would that be something that everyone would be on board with?
And, you know, not at all. First of all, the Constitution states a quorum is necessary. We were hired, we were voted in to be the voice of the people, to represent them in Washington, to debate, to understand the issues, to read them. Clearly, you can read them remotely, but no, it is not a good idea. Just as an election would be a terrible idea to do remotely. In an election with the large number of people, all kinds of mistakes, unintentional and intentional fraud could take place. So no, people want to go to the polling booths. Congress should be in session with at least a quorum. There are some members that I understand that are elderly and have underlying conditions. Okay, then you can't make that vote. And if we did something temporary for them, I could talk about that. But you still need a quorum, as per the Constitution.
Absolutely. This on the heels of some states are already sending out mail-in voting ballots. And we'll talk about that later in this program. We appreciate your time. Republican Congressman Dan Meuser, Pennsylvania.
Thanks.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.